I welcome you all to Legally Yours, powered by Chandigarh Civil Services. In our YouTube channel, we will focus on exam-specific topics. तो आज की ये जो वीडियो है उन सभी एस्पिरेंट्स के लिए है जो हिमाचल प्रदेश जुडिशियल सर्विसेज एग्जाम के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं. Because you would know, in the preliminary exam, there were 10 questions asked from this unit. Apart from that, there were several questions that were asked in the mains exam as well. और ये जो legislation है, it is just a matter of a few videos and you will be able to master it. We have a shortage on material, that is why these videos I'm sure will come handy. तो इस introductory video में हम focus करेंगे rent legislations पर. That what was the need of these rent acts. Apart from that, we will talk about the formation of Himachal Pradesh. Reason being, this is very important from the interview point of view, and you will be able to understand the date of enactment and the date of enforcement जो exam में directly पूछी जाती है. Thereafter, our focus will be on urban, the term urban. Reason being, इससे एक तो हमें jurisdiction का पता लगेगा इस act की. Apart from that, nowhere in the act this is defined. This is not defined anywhere in the Rent Act. So without much ado, let us pursue. So the very first thing we'll be covering is the brief history of these rent legislations. So back in the years, a century ago, we had no legislation with respect to rent. And at that particular time, the Transfer of Property Act 1882 used to govern the matters with respect to the landlord and the tenant. Now, if we talk about the history, that at what time in the past did the rent legislations actually come into being? It was at the time of World Wars. So at the time of World Wars, we see that there was an acute shortage of housing worldwide. And in its aftermath, there was a need felt that they need to protect the rights of those people who were looking for accommodations. So the very first time when the rent legislations came into being, it was after the World Wars. With respect to India, if we see, after the independence, when we had partition, that was the time when specifically we had to make legislations to safeguard the rights of all those refugees who were in need of an accommodation. So thereafter we had this second generation of legislations. और इंडिया में तो थर्ड जनरेशन भी देखी गई आफ्टर द 1991 LPG रिफॉर्म्स. तो एक बार इसको हम डिटेल में कवर कर लेते हैं so that if any question is asked with respect to the historical background of the rent legislations, we should be able to answer it. So like I shared, that the rent control legislation in India was introduced immediately after the First World War. तो बॉम्बे में 1918 में for the first time India had a rent control legislation. And on similar lines, Calcutta और रंगून में 1920 में we had rent control legislations. तो अभी तो इन प्राइम सिटीज में ही हमारे पास ये लेजिस्लेशन आई, लेकिन by the end of the Second World War, we saw that all the major cities and towns in the country, they were covered by some rent control measures or the other. But हमारे लिए ये जानना बहुत जरूरी है कि ये जो फर्स्ट जनरेशन है, ये कौन implement कर रहा है? The British. The British is the one who is implementing this first generation rent laws in India. और इनका जो purpose था, it was purely temporary. They just wanted to make sure that smoothly people are able to get houses on rent. So these were some temporary measures अगर हम देखें. So all these acts born were out of the inflationary aftermath of the First World War. And they were conceived as purely temporary measures to provide relief to the tenant against the demands of exorbitant rent and indiscriminate eviction by the landlords due to scarcity of houses in the urban areas. So एकदम से इतना influx हो गया था लोगों का that there was a shortage of houses in the urban areas, and the rent that was charged, it was exorbitant, and there it resulted in an inflationary aftermath of the World War. तो इसको कॉम्बैट करने के लिए ब्रिटिशर्स ने टेम्पररीली एक लेजिस्लेशन बनाई थी रेंट की. But thereafter, after the independence, India was in a grave need of these legislations. Reason being, there was partition. Partition के कारण so many people had to relocate, right? So post independence जो हमारी legislations India को बनानी पड़ी वो थी हमारी second generation of rent laws. हम वीडियो में आगे देखेंगे कि हिमाचल प्रदेश की जो पहली legislation आई with respect to rent, क्या वो first generation थी या second generation? Thereafter, the post-independence legislation, they protected the rights of tenants. Reason being, हमने controller को appoint करा for the first time. We appointed the controllers, and now the rent matters were at their mercy. And in a catena of judgments, it was accepted that ये जो second generation rent control laws हैं, they have been interpreted in the favor of tenants. And that is why we needed the third generation of rent acts. Even Law Commission of India ने 129th report में state करा था that the maximum disputes that are pending before the courts, they are with respect to eviction. Moving further, let's talk about the third generation rent laws in India. तो हमारे पास लिबरलाइजेशन, प्राइवेटाइजेशन एंड ग्लोबलाइजेशन की पॉलिसी आई 1991 में. तो हमने देखा जो हमारी लिबरलाइजेशन के कारण एक इकोनॉमिक रिजीम में बहुत चेंज आया है. रीजन बीइंग मेनी पीपल वांटेड टू शिफ्ट टू द सिटीज नाउ. सो thereby we had a massive shift in our economic as well as socio-legal infrastructure and environment of a country. बहुत सारे लोग चाहते थे बड़ी बड़ी cities में move करना from the rural areas. So that is why the legislations that were implemented in the period post this circulation were the model rent control legislations of 1992, marked by the epoch of third generation laws on this subject. So ये जो model rent control legislation है, it is given by the center. तो center provides the same, लेकिन हमें ये जानना बहुत जरूरी है that ये जो rent matters हैं, they come under the state. तो अब it was up to the states whether they wanted to implement these model rent acts or they wanted to make some changes in their own acts. So the states were given this liberty. Now various states, they had amended their rent laws. For example, even the Himachal Pradesh Act in 2009 it was amended, and this amendment was implemented in the year 2012. Now we will discuss about the formation of Himachal Pradesh. ये हमारे लिए जानना इसलिए जरूरी है because it will give us the answers with respect to these important pre-based questions. That is the date of enforcement and the date of enactment. तो ये है इंडिया का मैप. यहाँ पर हमारे पास है हिमाचल प्रदेश. So if we look into this, these are the various districts marked of our Himachal Pradesh. तो इस पूरे हिमाचल प्रदेश पे क्या ये एक्ट लगता है? This is the question, and this has even been asked in our pre-exams. So now this Himachal Pradesh, the state, it is a post-independence creation. तो इससे हमें एक चीज क्लियर होती है कि हमारी जो भी रेंट एक्ट की पहली लेजिस्लेशन होगी वो इंडिपेंडेंस से पहले तो आई नहीं. दैट इज व्हाई इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द सेकंड जनरेशन ऑफ रेंट एक्ट्स, राइट. सो एनी लेजिस्लेशन दैट केम फॉर हिमाचल प्रदेश रेंट, it was a second generation. Thereafter we see that in the year 1948, on 15th April, Himachal Pradesh came into being and it was made a chief commissioner's province. उसके बाद हमारा जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इन्फोर्स हुआ on 26 January 1950, our Republic Day, on that day we see that Himachal Pradesh was made a part of Part C state. Part C states were governed by the center. जो Part C states थी उसमें एक तो former chief commissioner provinces were added. Apart from that, some princely states were also made a part of the same. इनको president इनके लिए चीफ कमिश्नर अपॉइंट करते थे एंड दे वर सेंट्रली एडमिनिस्टर्ड. नाउ दीज आर a list of 10 Part C states, and one of them is Himachal Pradesh. So even this can be asked in the interview. अब इसके बाद हिमाचल प्रदेश को यूनियन टेरिटरी बनाया गया 1 नवंबर 1956 को. Thereafter, some people confuse that Himachal Pradesh became a state in 1966, to which I would like to clarify that on 1st November 1966, only some hilly areas of Punjab, they were merged with Himachal Pradesh. One of them being Kangra. But its status, even in 1966, remained that of a union territory, right? It was only on 18th December 1970 that the act was passed with respect to the State of Himachal Pradesh Act. And thereafter, it came into being. When was it enforced? It was actually on 25th January 1971 that we got our state of Himachal Pradesh. And a pre-based fact, Himachal Pradesh emerged as the 18th state of the Indian Union. So, one date which is most important here is this particular date. On the date when the State of Himachal Pradesh Act came into force and we got our state. So this year, that is 1971, is very important for us. The reason being, हमारी जो legislation है तो 1987 की, but इसकी date of enforcement is deemed to be that of 17th November 1971. तो हमें 25th January 1971 को हिमाचल प्रदेश was formed. And when is the date of enforcement deemed to be? It is 17th of November 1971. So this is very important. Reason being, usually क्या होता है, पहले act enact होता है और उसके बाद उसकी enforcement date आती है. But in this particular legislation, what we see that assent of the president was on 20th October 1987. इस दिन हमारा ये जो करंट एक्ट है जो हम स्टडी कर रहे हैं, द हिमाचल प्रदेश अर्बन रेंट कंट्रोल एक्ट, सो दिस एक्ट गॉट द असेंट ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट ओनली ऑन 20th October 1987. सो दिस इज इट्स डेट ऑफ इनैक्टमेंट. इसकी डेट ऑफ इन्फोर्समेंट एज पर सेक्शन 1 सबसेक्शन 3 काउंट होती है 17th November 1971. So this is very important for you to note down. And the third and the most important date is that given in section 2A as the appointed day. तो ये 18th August 1987 है. Kindly mark 18 August and the same year as the legislation 1987. इस पे हमें last year के pre में question आया था, right? So where is it defined? It is defined in 2A. The day is called appointed day. And what is the date? 18th August 1987. इसकी अगर हमें सिग्निफिकेंस जाननी हो तो उसके लिए यू कुड रेफर टू सेक्शन 1 सबसेक्शन 3 क्लॉज आई. क्लॉज आई में आपको बताया जाता है कि ऐसे कौन कौन से सेक्शंस हैं which come into force on this particular date of appointed day. So any one of you who is a practicing advocate, अगर आपके पास कभी कोई रेंट रिलेटेड मैटर आए हिमाचल प्रदेश का, so there you should know the difference between the date of enactment and the appointed day with respect to this act. Reason being, जो भी section 1 subsection 3 के clause 1 में sections provided हैं, उन सब पर हमारा appointed day count होता है. Moving further, now we will discuss what is the significance of the term urban. Reason being, एक तो हमें इसकी jurisdiction पता लगेगी जो हमें प्री में लास्ट ईयर भी क्वेश्चन आया था. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, it is very important from the mains point of view. Reason being, it is nowhere provided in the BER Act. So ये है इंडिया का मैप जो बिल्कुल ही लाइट में है. दैट मीन्स 10 to 20% हमारा जो पॉपुलेशन है उस एरिया का. दिस लाइट कलर मीन्स that 10 to 20% of the population resides in the urban regions, right? And the facts with respect to Himachal Pradesh is that out of the total population, only 10.03% people, they live in urban areas. तो हिमाचल प्रदेश के जैसे ये हैं कुछ एक बाकी की स्टेट्स जहां पर up to 10 to 20% people they live in the urban areas, rest all reside in the rural areas, right? तो अब urban areas में 10.03% लोग reside करते हैं, but हमें जानना है कि ये urban areas actually हैं क्या. तो उसके लिए we refer to the definition that is given in the Census of India 2011. तो इस सेंसस में ही हमें अर्बन एरियाज की डेफिनेशन मिलती है. So they clearly provide all places with municipal corporation, municipality, cantonment boards or notified town area committee, etc. So such areas, they form a part of the statutory towns. Reason being, by law they have been recognized as urban areas. So that is why the term statutory towns. So all places with a municipality, a municipal corporation, cantonment board or any notified town area committee. तो ये सब areas हमारे आएंगे in the ambit of statutory towns, that the law itself recognizes them as urban areas. Now these towns, they are notified under their local laws, right? Under law by the concerned state UT government, and they have their own local bodies. Like you have to identify आप जिस एरिया में रहते हैं उधर क्या है, क्या वहाँ म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन है या म्यूनिसिपैलिटी. And this is irrespective of their demographic. That means इधर population का कोई रोल नहीं है. So it is irrespective of their demographic. Looking at the infrastructure, the state felt that this is an urban area. And this criteria was up till 31st December 2009. 31st December 2009 तक जितने भी टाउन्स को जिनमें म्यूनिसिपैलिटी थी, म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन था, उन सबको स्टेट्यूटरी टाउन बोला जाता है. And it is with this respect, under this clause itself, that Shimla Municipal Corporation was identified, right? And Shimla was reckoned as an urban area. So one important thing we need to know is it is irrespective of their demographic. Moving further, now this is the criteria. इसमें ये सब conditions need to be met at once. If these conditions are met, then the towns are called the census towns. पहले कौन सा था? हमारे पास था statutory towns. But ये जो है, this is census towns. और इसमें कौन से साल की census count होते हैं? It is 2001. 2001 का जो सेंसस का डाटा था, उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम ये क्राइटेरिया चेक करते हैं. सबसे पहले a minimum population of 5,000. Thereafter, 75% of the male main working population that has to be engaged in what? Non-agricultural pursuits, right? So 75% of the male main population, it has to be engaged into the non-agricultural pursuits. और जो हमारी डेंसिटी ऑफ पीपल होनी चाहिए, that should be at least 400 persons per square kilometer. So these are the criteria. In case these are met, the town will be recognized as a census town and it will be treated as an urban area, right? तो with respect to हिमाचल प्रदेश हम देखेंगे, हमारी म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशंस शिमला, धर्मशाला, सोलन, मंडी, पालमपुर, इन सब एरियाज में हमारे पास म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन है. Thereafter, बद्दी, नाहन, पोंटा साहिब, ऊना, कुल्लू, इन सब जगह पर हमारे पास म्यूनिसिपल काउंसिल. कंटोनमेंट बोर्ड्स भी हमारा अर्बन एरिया में ट्रीट होते हैं. तो योल, कसौली, डलहौजी, दक्षाई एटसेट्रा, ऑल दीज कम अंडर दी अर्बन एरिया बिकॉज दे हैव कंटोनमेंट बोर्ड्स. और ये जो सेंसस टाउन है जो हमने क्लॉज 2 में डिस्कस करे, these are Jakri, Indora and Shamshi. So these 3 towns, they are census towns that earlier they were not recognized, but 2001 के census के according they met all these criteria that we last discussed and they were recognized as urban areas. So with this we sum up the importance of urban and come to the most important point with respect to the jurisdiction. तो ये जो act है, it applies on the urban areas of the state of Himachal Pradesh. And in section 1, subsection 2 also, we are provided with respect to jurisdiction. That what is the jurisdiction of the act? It is the urban areas of the state of Himachal Pradesh. So section 1 subsection 2 also provides for the jurisdiction. आगे हम देखते हैं इस एक्ट का स्कोप क्या है. इस एक्ट का स्कोप हमें पता लगता है preamble of the acts. So it is an act to provide for the control of what? Rents and evictions within the limits of urban areas in the state of Himachal Pradesh. इससे एक डायरेक्ट प्री बेस्ड क्वेश्चन आया था इन आवर लास्ट एग्जाम ऑफ हिमाचल प्रदेश, whereby they had asked कि what is the scope of the act. So the scope of the act is that this act provides for the control of both the rent as well as the evictions within the urban areas. So this is the jurisdiction, right? Within the urban areas only. Urban areas क्या है वो हम पहले डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. So these are a few MCQs I would like to discuss with you. What is the appointed day of the Himachal Pradesh Urban Rent Control Act 1987? आपके पास 4 ऑप्शंस हैं. 18th August 1987, 18th October 1987, 18th October 1971 या फिर 18th August 1971. So you have to select the correct answer. अगर आपने ये पूरा वीडियो देखा होगा so you will be able to guess the answer right. Moving further, so even this question was asked in the exam, that the Rent Act of Himachal Pradesh applies to, does it apply to the whole of Himachal Pradesh, the cities of Himachal Pradesh, urban areas of Himachal Pradesh, or all of the above, right? अगर यहाँ पर कोई census town जैसा option होता तो शायद all of the above सही answer होता. But this particular option, that is the whole of Himachal Pradesh, so this cannot come under the jurisdiction of our Himachal Pradesh Rent Act. Reason being, we have only the urban areas. Okay? So the correct answer is urban areas of Himachal Pradesh. And you will be surprised that such an easy question was asked in the exam. So all you have to do is follow the BEAR Act, follow the videos. And another simple question that was asked was, कौन से ऐसे matters हैं जो cover करे जाते हैं Rent Act में? क्या वो rent matters हैं, eviction matters हैं, both rent and eviction matters हैं, and none of the above? So अगर आप ध्यान से options नहीं देखेंगे, you would realize you might end up marking any of A and B, but the answer is both A and B, right? So this is the correct answer, that both rent and eviction matters are a part of Himachal Pradesh Urban Rent Control Act 1987. So this was a brief video to tell you how achievable this legislation is. In the next video, we will be covering the definitions, both from the pre as well as the mains point of view. Stay tuned. Thank you.